Morning everyone, it's June 15th and today we are going to do a few things. I got a lot of things on my to-do list. I'll go ahead and read it off to you. The first thing we're going to do is get the sleeves pulled on this H block. That shouldn't take too long, hopefully. Then we're going to reinstall the crank and the connecting rods and Plasti-Guage that stuff. I've got my Plasti-Guage right here to check the clearances. That way we can order our engine kit and the right size bearings. Now this had 30 thousandths bearings underneath in the rods and the mains, but I want to double check the clearances just to make sure the crankshaft's okay. So it should be 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch clearance between the bearing and the crank. And what else do we got to do? Some yard work. I want to get the battery in the John Deere A. I haven't started that up at all this year, and I haven't started it since we did the carburetor at Rudy's. So I want to get that in, and then I want to use the A to pull out some shrubs in front of the house here that we really don't need there anymore because they're blocking a window, and it's a pain in the butt. So we're going to pull those out with the A. That's the plan. I got to put down some mosquito killer because the mosquitoes around here are just horrendous with all the rain we've been getting. Plus we've got the wetland in the back, so that really breeds the mosquitoes. The DNR comes over with the helicopters and drops pellets or sprays or does whatever they do, but it's not doing a very good job because the mosquitoes are thick as clouds around here. So what else? We got to pull the front wheels off the M. I don't know if I'm going to get to that this weekend or not because we got to get the new tires on there. The tires from Titan Tire are coming for the H project on Monday, so there's going to be a lot of space in the garage that's being taken up by tires. But big shout out to Titan Tire, man. I can't believe that they were willing to step up and sponsor this project, and I can't thank them enough because all the money that we can save on this project we can put forth towards the organization for the donations. So, and you guys know that usually when you get into these tractors, it's not you anticipate it not costing a whole lot, but as soon as you get elbow deep into it, you start going, oh boy. So even though this one was in really good shape and ran pretty well, there's just a lot of worn parts. Like all of the steering components are going to have to be replaced. All the bushings, the bearings, the upper, the U-joint in the shaft, the lower shaft with the worm gear, and then the gear on top of the pedestal, the sector gear. So all that's going to have to be replaced. It's all worn out. There's a lot of just small pieces that really add up, you know, gauges and paint and seat shock and bushings for the seat and, you know, new studs for the radiator and the rubber pads that the radiator mounts on and the fuel tank pads, and I mean the list just keeps compounding, you know. But anyways, we'll get it done. I got a whole bunch of stuff on here. Most of it's yard work or house related chores that I haven't been able to do during the week. But let me go ahead and show you what I've got for a puller setup. I got to give a special shout out to Elijah. He turned me a puck for the bottom of the sleeve on the H. So basically what happens is threaded rod comes through this hole, okay, up from the bottom. This puck is machined to fit inside the bore of the sleeve, but it also has another machined surface that is probably about 10 thousandths of an inch smaller than the parent bore or the block bore, so that it can slide up through the block as you pull it out. It'll make more sense once I get it all set up. So you need a puck, You need your heavy-duty crossbar for the top. This is your crossbar that supports the threaded rod as you pull it up. You need some threaded rod. I use 3/4 inch threaded rod. You could use 5/8, but the bigger the better. So you're going to be putting a lot of force on this stuff. And you need some big heavy nuts, so just as well as some flat washers. So I'll get it all set up, and you guys will see kind of what it looks like. Now I use these wood blocks as cribbing for the puller, but you should probably use something that doesn't compress, like a big piece of, you know, 1 inch thick plate steel, but I don't have that, so I'm gonna make do with what I've got, and I'll get it set up. Oof, mosquitoes are already coming at me, so I'll get it set up and you guys can see what I'm talking about. All right. Okay, so here's the setup. I've got double nuts up top, that way I have something to grab onto to keep the rod from turning. And then I've got a single nut and flat washer on top of my crossbar. Then you've got your supporting wood or blocks of steel, what have you. The threaded rod goes down through the block, through the bore, and then up underneath you've got your cup or your puck, whatever you want to call it, with a washer and another nut. So let's go ahead and start turning on this and see what happens. Okay, we got 4, 3, and 2 out. 3 came out pretty tough, and then 4 and 2 were easy. But now the issue we're running into with the number 1 is there's really no place to put anything on the front as far as a support block. So I had to take and screw 2 2x6s together, and then it's resting on just barely some of the front of the block. So we'll see if that works. I know that I've already put some tension on this setup, and I know that number 1 is going to be pretty tough to pull. We'll see what happens here. I'm hoping that having these doubled up will give this back one some strength so it doesn't buckle. But we'll see. Let me get the camera set up here and try to find the best angle to do this where you guys can get some actual... I don't want to put it on that one. That's all I need is to ruin my camera. My new camera. So we'll put it there. See what happens here. there's quite a bit of pressure on it here. I'll show you guys kind of what I'm working with here. This is why steel would be the best idea. See how this wood is just starting to smash, and I can hear it. It's definitely starting to creak and crack, and so I'm not sure. I don't have any steel that will work, so I'm gonna have to look around here and see what I can find. Maybe I can find something that'll help it along. Sometimes if you got like dry ice, you can put dry ice down inside these cylinders, and that'll cause the cylinders to contract a little bit, and they'll pop loose that way. But I don't have any, so let me get back with you. Okay, well, I found some pieces of metal to use. I used a piece of angle iron around this front stud here, and then I had a piece of drawbar, an old piece of drawbar that I used with the large piece of pipe, and then I had to shim it with this piece of metal here to get everything so it's pulling straight. But it's working. It's about an inch up, but as you can tell, I'm out of breath because this one's pulling very, very hard. So we'll keep working on it and go from there. It'll come out. All right, got them all out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm not sure why this one pulled so much harder. It must be because there's some rust on it here. So must have just had a little bit of condensation between the sleeve or something. I'm not sure, but I'm definitely going to hit the bores just lightly with the hone, the block bores, or the parent bores as they're called. I'll hit them lightly with the hone just to remove any of the rust and scale that might be in there, and then that should make the new sleeves go in a little bit easier. But number one was definitely definitely the hardest one to pull. So let's see, what do we got to do? Flip the engine over, put the crank back in, and then I'm going to pull all the pistons off the rods so that I can just drop them down in without the pistons on. And then we'll Plasti-Guage everything and check our clearances, and from there we're ready to order parts. So then I just got to do a bunch of yard work. But I'll get some video of that John Deere pulling them bushes out, because we've never really done any real work with it. I mean, last year at Plow Day out at this old farm, we did pull the, I think it was it a rake? I can't remember. I think it was a rake we pulled. But anyways, let's get the crankshaft back in it and start measuring stuff up. Alright guys, Here we've got the Plasti-Guage. Now what it is, here I'll show you here. There's a very thin piece of, I believe it's some type of plastic or wax, or probably plastic, that's why they call it Plasti-Guage. And then on this piece of paper that it comes in are your gauges, okay? So it'll make more sense once we go through the process, but essentially you tighten the rod caps down and the main bearing caps, and then you use your gauge to measure the thickness of how much that piece of plastic smashed or expanded when you tightened all your caps down. So you lay a small piece of that plastic across each of your bearing journals. I'll do the mains first, and then I'll do the rods, and then you lay your bearing caps in place. So if we go like this, I'll turn that one around. Okay. Sometimes you gotta wiggle these down into place. Let me get this camera mounted and I'll be right back with you. Alright, all our caps are in place, so we just tighten them down to 75 foot-pounds. Gotta double check them all. Alright, now we can take them off. We'll take off just the middle one, just to look to see, and then we'll start with the rods. Sometimes they're a little difficult to get out. Okay, so let's see, where can I stick this? If you look closely, you can see this red line is widened out. That's that plastic. So if we get our gauge, and check, you got to match it up with we're at about 4 thousandths, so we're gonna have to order mains for sure. because we should be between 2 and 3 thousandths, and we're at about 4, so we might even be closer to 5. No. It's about 4. It's between 3 and 4. So we're right on the borderline. So mains, we might as well get the 30 thousandths bearings, because that's what was in it, and then we'll check the rods here. I'm going to double check all the other mains, but I just wanted to show you guys how that stuff works if you've never used it. But I'll check the other mains, and then we'll do the rods. Alright guys, well at this point it doesn't really pay to continue Plasti-Guaging, because I did one of the 4 rods and we've only got 4 thousandths of clearance on this, so maximum allowable is 3 thousandths. So we might as well just order all new bearings for the bottom as well. So that's where we're at on that. The next thing I want to do real quick is just check the outer round on the journals here. So now usually what I do is I measure at least 2, you should measure 3 different axes. So X, Y, and then a third going kind of in between X and Y at a 45. So we call that Z. But for sure measure your X and Y to see what your width is this way and your width is this way, and then you should do it so you can figure out what your width is this way. And there's a maximum allowable tolerance for that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and do that while it's in here. I'll do the rods, and then I'll do the mains. I'll have to take it out of the tractor or out of the block to do the mains, but I don't feel any significant scoring. You know, nothing that can't be polished out with some light emery cloth. So let's go ahead and do that. Always have a piece of paper so you can write everything down. Alright, we'll start with number 1. on the 2. So far we're looking good. Let's see here. Go to 3. And then the last one. Okay, so on the rods, rod 1 is only 1/1000th out of round, rod 2 is only 1/1000th out of round, rod 3 is 0, and rod 4 is 1/1000th, and they're all between 2.213 and 2.215 depending on which journal you look at. So crank is good as far as the rods go. Now we got to pull it out and check the mains. So let's go ahead and do that. I will try to figure out a place to put it here, probably on one of these rugs. Alright, here we go. Laying on the garage floor here. Sometimes you gotta just do what you gotta do, you know? All right. Well, here's what we're looking at. Rod clearance and mains are about 4 thousandths. Should be 2 to 3 thousandths. Out around on our rod bearings are all within 1 thousandths. And then out around on our mains are also all within 1 thousandths. Our piston pin diameter is 1.105, which is important when we go to order the rebuild kit for this, because there was 2 different piston pin sizes. The second one was like 0.9 something, 9.8 or 9.7, I can't remember. So this has got the larger piston pin in it, and that's important because the bushings for the piston pins or wrist pins, whatever you want to call them, need to be the correct size, otherwise they're not going to work. So anyhow, we've got our measurements done, we've got our sleeves pulled, and yeah, I think we can go ahead and order our engine kit. So that's good. We don't have to grind the crank. That's excellent. So we'll just hit it with some light emery cloth to polish it up a little bit, and that'll be it. So I think we'll stop right here for the Farmall H stuff, and then I got to continue on with my yard work. So let me get the battery, put in the John Deere, and we'll start pulling some bushes and actually make some noise around here. All right, talk to you later. All right, guys. Well, I haven't started this thing since, I don't know, last October or November, somewhere in that area. And since then, we took the carb over to Rudy's, we rebuilt it. It's already been rebuilt once, but I figured, what the heck. Just put some gas in it. The battery's been in the house since last fall. I did have a charger on it for quite a while, but I haven't put a charger on it since, well, probably for at least a couple months now. But anyhow, hopefully it should fire right up. We'll see. I know I'm going to have to adjust the carburetor more than likely, but let's see what happens. Opening the throttle a little bit here. Probably flooded. Getting something here. it is. No more bushes. Probably plant some hostas in there, but those bushes, you couldn't even get any light in that bottom bedroom there. So that's gonna conclude it. I'm hot, I'm sweaty. I gotta put this stuff in the brush pile, and the Model A runs good. So thanks for staying tuned, thanks for watching, thanks for wrenching with me, and until another episode, we'll see you.